Titanic 25 accident, 1985-1987. Between 1985 and 1987, several hospitals in the United States and Canada were using a new radiotherapy machine called the Titanic 25. It was supposed to be a modern breakthrough, fully computer-controlled, safer, faster, and more precise than older models. But what no one expected was that the software, written largely by one engineer and never properly tested, contained deadly errors. Because of a race condition in the code, the machine could accidentally switch modes in milliseconds, delivering radiation doses hundreds of times higher than intended. Operators would type commands, see brief error messages, and repeat the inputs, unknowingly triggering catastrophic overdoses. Patients reported feeling sudden burning sensations, some even saying it felt like an electric shock. In several cases, tissue was destroyed internally, leading to severe injuries and ultimately deaths. On June 3, 1985, in Marietta, Georgia, patient Gloria Salter, recovering after a mastectomy, reported feeling a massive heat, like being struck by lightning. Her arm was later paralyzed. Internal tissues were destroyed. On July 26, 1985, in Hamilton, Ontario, patient Ray Cox was overdosed after the display falsely reported no dose delivered, prompting operators to restart the machine several times. He died months later. Additional overdoses occurred in Yakima, Washington, and Tyler, Texas, including one in which the patient reportedly jumped from the table due to the burning sensation. Investigation revealed that AECL, the manufacturer, had dismissed earlier internal bug reports and even instructed technicians that overdoses were impossible. Titanic 25 became a landmark case in engineering ethics, proof that software failure can kill just as surely as mechanical failure, and overconfidence is often deadlier than ignorance. 3 Mile Island accident, 1979. At 4 a.m. on March 28, 1979, the night shift at 3 Mile Island's Unit 2 reactor in Pennsylvania noticed a disturbance in the feedwater pumps. A relatively minor malfunction spiraled into the most serious accident in U.S. commercial nuclear power history. The relief valve in the pressurizer opened as designed, but then failed to close, allowing coolant to escape. The alarm indicators, however, misleadingly showed the valve as closed because the system monitored only the electrical signal, not the valve's physical position. Operators, believing the reactor had too much water, manually reduced coolant flow, unaware that the core was being starved. Inside the reactor, temperatures rose to over 4,000 grados Celsius, hot enough to damage fuel rods. A partial meltdown began. A hydrogen bubble formed in the vessel, causing fears of a possible explosion similar to a miniature bomb detonation, though later analysis confirmed this wasn't physically possible. On the control room tapes, operators can be heard arguing over conflicting readings, trying to determine whether the core was covered with water or nearly exposed. It took 16 hours before the flow was restored and the reactor stabilized. Although deaths or mass radiation sickness did not occur, the event deeply shocked the nation. Subsequent studies estimated the release at roughly 43,000 curies of kryptonite fangs, causing panic despite the limited health effects. 3 Mile Island proved how a combination of confusing instrumentation, outdated training, and operator stress can nearly turn a routine malfunction into a national catastrophe. Norwegian rocket incident, 1995. On January 25, 1995, Norwegian and American scientists launched a Black Brant 12-sounding rocket from Andøya, Norway, to study the northern lights. Routine scientific experiment, except for one detail. Its trajectory resembled that of a U.S. Trident missile designed to deliver a nuclear warhead toward Moscow. Russian early warning radars in Murmansk detected the rocket as it ascended to 900 km altitude. Data was sent directly to the Russian General Staff. Within minutes, the highest level of nuclear readiness, Kremlin Chigit Protocol, was activated. President Boris Yeltsin, Defense Minister Pavel Grachev, and Chief of the General Staff Mikhail Kolesnikov opened the nuclear suitcases, preparing for a possible retaliatory launch. This was the first and only time in history a nuclear state's leader activated the Cheget in response to a perceived attack. The rocket separated stages in a way that resembled MIR-V warhead deployment. Russian analysts had 6-8 minutes to decide whether the U.S. had launched a surprise strike to blind Russian radar. Fortunately, radar systems soon identified that the object was heading toward the Arctic, not Russia. The alert was canceled. Had communication failed, or someone made a wrong assumption during those minutes? The event could have triggered a nuclear exchange, all because a scientific experiment, which Norway had officially notified Russia about weeks prior, became misinterpreted. Apollo 12 Lightning Strike 1969. Just 36 seconds after liftoff from Kennedy Space Center on November 14, 1969, Apollo 12 flew directly into a storm cloud. A bolt of lightning struck the Saturn V rocket, traveling down the exhaust plume into the spacecraft's electrical systems. Control panels inside the command module went dark, and telemetry to mission control scrambled. Astronaut Pete Conrad reportedly exclaimed, "We just lost the platform," meaning the navigational system had failed completely. A second lightning strike hit at 52 seconds, and the fuel cells began shutting down. Without them, the spacecraft would have aborted, and the astronaut's survival was at risk. Flight controller John Aaron suddenly recognized the telemetry pattern. He had seen similar anomalies during a simulation where the signal conditioning equipment SCE misread sensors after power failure. He told the crew, "Try SCE to AUX." Astronaut Alan Bean flipped the switch, and the spacecraft's systems returned to normal. Apollo 12 continued its mission, landed on the moon, and proved how a single technical insight, combined with calm decision-making, can prevent disaster in seconds. Moscow nuclear false alarm, 1983. On the night of September 26, 1983, in a bunker near Moscow, Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov was monitoring the OKO, early warning satellite system. At 0:15, a piercing alarm sounded. The system reported that one U.S. Minuteman missile had been launched toward the USSR. Seconds later, it reported 4 more. Protocol dictated immediate report to Soviet leadership, which could authorize a nuclear response. Tension between the superpowers was at a peak. Earlier that month, the USSR had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007. Some analysts argue the USSR genuinely feared a U.S. first strike. Petrov noticed inconsistencies. The U.S. would not start nuclear war with only 5 missiles. Radar showed no incoming warheads. He violated protocol and declared the alert a false alarm. Later analysis confirmed sunlight, reflected from high altitude. Clouds had fooled the sensors. Petrov's decision likely prevented nuclear retaliation. For decades, his role remained classified. Today, many historians consider him one of the people who literally saved the world. Titanic iceberg collision, 1912. Late on April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic sailed through the North Atlantic at nearly 22.5 knots. Despite iceberg warnings from ships like the Masaba and the Californian, wireless operators were overwhelmed with passenger telegrams and missed critical danger messages. At 11:40 p.m., lookout Frederick Fleet spotted an iceberg only 500 meters ahead. The ship attempted to turn, but the hull scraped along the iceberg, opening seams below the waterline. The Titanic was designed to survive flooding of 4 compartments. 6 flooded. Captain Edward Smith ordered lifeboats launched. Many early boats left half empty. Wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride continued sending distress calls until power failed. The Carpathia, 58 miles away, steamed at full speed and rescued 705 survivors. Without its response, nearly all 2,200 souls on board could have perished. Investigators later noted how dangerously close the Titanic came to total annihilation. If the iceberg had struck head-on, or if rescue had been delayed, the tragedy would have been even worse.